decent launching. It's not too high yet.
Right.
So I'm talking to David because he's been down there a couple of times.
That's the problem is that it's like last year you couldn't get in because everything was too low.
Yep.
And
We were on the water early enough to where we were good and on
Yeah.
the rock.
well, it's like, you look at lake houses. Looking at lake houses and you go, 5 months ago, you looked at a lake house, there was a lake about 500 yards out that way.
Mud puddle.
Yeah.
Behind their house.
You need to mow the lake.
Okay, our lake listing? On Lake Louisville?
Oh,
See the fence
yeah.
line down into the water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the picture before where there was a lot of core property between it?
Fence line down there, and it's in the water.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you see that video of Wayne's Land?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That one.
Oh.
It's like a river.
Yeah, it was like a river on both sides. I mean, he was like an island, I think.
Well, it used to be from their fence, there was still quite a bit of grass, and then there was a beach,
Right.
and then,
Well, he put down all that sod too. I think it washed all of it.
Wayne's.
Yeah, his is new. These guys, at least it's been about 2.5 years. So hopefully the grass is,
Gonna stay better.
All right, let's go ahead and get everything started. I think we've got one or two other people that have texted me that said they're going to show up late. Comparative market analysis. For some of you guys, this is going to be very basic stuff. I've got a few things thrown in here to really kind of look at the difference between a buyer's market and seller's market and how in each different situation, because as we know, markets are different. It used to be that markets were very neighborhood basic. They were specific to a neighborhood. And in some instances in these days, it still is, but with low inventory like we have now, I was talking to Gail earlier, with low inventory, markets have expanded. It's not just one specific neighborhood. We were talking about a situation, Sandy Glen. One of our agents listed a house for 180 or 185,000 in Sandy Glen. I think it was 180 in Sandy Glen. She sold it for 196. If you were talking about a one-story, 1,800 square foot house in that neighborhood 3 or 4 years ago, you were talking more like 140. And you would be able to comp it because the inventory was within that neighborhood. These days, the inventory expands your market out. So what we're going to talk about now is the objectives of this class. Learn the general rules of determining the values of a property while also looking at the market and distinguishing between a seller's and buyer's market. We'll look at a price a home and a suburban and a rural market. So we're going to look at two different types of markets because how you price them are totally different. And how you look at everything, whether it be a rural property or a suburban property, there are different factors to pull in. And so we will take a look at each one and help you guys out, give you some tips on helping with the market analysis. First off, suburban home value, general rules for suburban home. Stay within the neighborhood boundaries if there are 3 or more sold comparables in the last 180 days. That's a normal market situation. And we'll talk about it. Caveat I have at the bottom there, in a hot seller's market, try to use homes sold in the last 90 days. This will keep you in line with increasing prices because right now, prices, what happened 2 months ago is different than what happened now. I comped a home for a lady in El Dorado Heights last September. It comped 210, 215. We just sold it for 252, 500. So big difference. So comping a home between those two time frames is totally different. So you try to stay as close to the time as possible. Stay within 5 years of the home age. Example, homes built in 1990, use homes built between 1985 and 1995, then expand again if there are more sold comparable properties. So you always have these general rules that you're working with, and then you expand from those general rules. Okay. Use 1-story homes when subject property is a 1-story. Use 2-story when there's more than one level. Okay, that means if there is a 1.5 story, which we see those quite often, if it's a 1.5 story, you have to use a 2-story comparable. You can't use a 1-story comparable because it is a 2-level house. Okay, 1-story to 1-story, apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Always. Stay within 300 square feet of the subject unless the subject home is 3,000 feet or larger, then use comparables within 10% of the size. Okay? Example, the subject home is 2,000 square feet, then use homes between 1,700 and 2,300. If it's 4,000 square feet, then use 3,600 to 4,400. Then again, expand off that number if you do not have 3 or more. Always try to use 3. Use only resale homes unless it's a new neighborhood and the home is within 2 years old. Same thing with buying a car. You don't want to buy, you can't comp a used car to a new car. It's not the same. It's a used property. Okay? Easy way to remember how to price a home is think of a home like a car. To get an accurate value, you have to know its options. You have to, if it's a convertible with navigation, or is it a Yugo? Try to use the same type of comparables. They cannot be priced the same way. You can't comp a Mercedes or BMW to a Yugo car. You can't comp a truck to a hatchback. 2 different types of properties, 2 different types of cars. Okay. Suburban home. Typical suburban neighborhood, they're very conforming. They're conforming in quality and style within a neighborhood, thus making them easier to determine the value. Suburban properties are actually relatively simple to do. I mean, they really are. They have typical lots, typical HOAs. They're typically built by 1 or 2, 3 builders within the neighborhood. The HOA and the city are going to determine they have to build this type of property, this size, within this quality. And so typically within a neighborhood, they're going to be very, very simple and very easy to do. Okay. The older a home becomes, the more detail is needed due to updates and maintenance. Okay. Homes built in the 70s, especially in Plano, for example, you have to look at foundations, roofs, AC units. Believe it or not, some of this, you go out there and you look at the AC unit, and it is the little bitty AC unit that was put onto the property. It's the compressor. And so, you know, some of the maintenance hasn't been done on the house. Okay. Same thing with the roof. How old is the roof? How old is the hot water heaters? You have to know, make sure the maintenance has been done to the property. Also, what are the updates? Granite, stainless steel, hardwood, flooring, etc. Okay. So now we're going to look at a subject home, 3633 Ironwood. Okay. Home was built, 2-story home, built in 1999. Most of us know this is El Dorado Heights. Here are the comps on it. It's 2,572 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-car garage, on a 1/4 acre lot. There's the description of the property. Okay. Pretty standard, huge backyard, large kitchen, ample countertops, doesn't say anything upgraded. Lovely window seat with kitchen nook, master, 3 bedrooms up. Pretty standard, nice office, play area upstairs, new roof. So it's had a little maintenance done to it. Okay, so let's look at some comparables real quick.
That window seat, man, it's up there.
That window seat. All right, here's some comparables. And one of the things that you'll notice about this is that I pulled up El Dorado Heights, and I pulled up 2 stories in El Dorado Heights. Okay. The solds, I narrowed down the solds a little bit. I didn't do the actives. So what does that tell us?
Didn't narrow the actives.
I did not narrow down the actives.
Yeah, so there's only 1 active.
There's 1 active. Okay.
But you did though within 300 on your.
Yeah, I tried to pull it in within from about 300 square
The
feet.
square feet.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the sold for this one is in here, and I just narrowed it out to take it out of there. So what we have in here is we have really 6 comparable solds, 1 active. This really tells us it is a very hot seller's market. We'll talk about in a second. Low inventory, high demand, it's economics. Okay. But what we got here is we've got our comp was 2,500 square feet. Do what?
Oh, before you ever even pulled it up, I was gonna say 250 before you ever even pulled one.
You're about right. It's about $100 square foot. That's kind of what everything's going for. But if we look at our comparables here, we've got 2,600 that went at 225. We have 2448, which was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story. So in other words, it's a 1.5. So the 240, 2,600, 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 240, 2514, just about exact, 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, smaller lot, 245, and then 3725 Pine Tree, 2448, 255, and then 2442 square feet at 280. What's the difference? It had a pool.
I'm
Okay.
getting ready to list one in there in about a week, that it's 2,800 square feet with a pool and a corner lot. So it's got a big lot, you know, it's got some grass. She has just finished totally adding new cabinets and painting the kitchen. She's got granite in both bathrooms now. She's done that this weekend. That she's always had granite, stainless, and, you know, Bosch and all that stuff.
Right.
I was talking 295. I may be too low still. You know, I don't know. Because of that neighborhood, I wanted to stay under 3.
Yeah, I think you have to still have to stay under
But
3.
I think we can get
Which
295.
part
The
of
way it
LA is
looks.
it?
It's in the older parts. It's kind of
What
near
street?
Lake Forest. It's just on the east side of Lake Forest, not way down.
So it's in an area that doesn't have the
It's
The pool.
Yeah, it's the
But you don't need the pool though, since you have one, but
Yeah.
still,
that needs the older part.
older side, and that was one reason. And I said I definitely don't want to go over 3. And at first I thought 289, and then when she did the bathrooms, I said I think we could probably get to 295 with
yeah.
those 2 bathrooms done now. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing we have to look at too is what are the comps going for? When we start talking about a seller's market like we're in now, you know, you have to look at what are the actives?
Yeah.
What are you competing against?
exactly, and not very many pools under 300,000 at all. So.
Yes, sir.
So in this particular scenario here, would you go 90 days because there's only one applicant?
This is 90 days.
So that is a 90-day comp.
This is 90-day comps.
Okay.
Okay. So if we look at this, we go, okay, the only really anomaly in here, we have 2 anomalies. We have the high and the low.
Mhm.
The low at 225, bigger square footage.
It's in the older part probably on Highlands.
And that's a
might
busy
be.
Well,
street.
Highlands is-
It's only,
Highlands
it's gonna be on a busy street,
Real busy street.
okay? But still, we look at the anomalies, 2,600, 225, 244, 2,442, at 280. But with the pool, you take off, how much you think you take off? 15, 20? Yeah,
In there,
15,
yeah.
20 in that neighborhood. Now, when you go into a larger neighborhood, we'll talk about pools. When you go into a more expensive neighborhood, the more valuable the pool is.
Yeah.
And depends on the amenities
More
of the
than
pool.
20,000.
Could be as much as 50. I mean, I've seen some pools and it depends on the features of the pool. You know, so, there's some things there to look at. So this one is fairly easy to comp. You know, you're probably saying 250 to 255 is the sales price.
I'm watching him for 270. He's just showing us some.
255,
Okay.
255.
Go over, they listed it.
They were listed at 245.
We got 10 more.
245. Now, it was on the market for 71 days,
Which is kind of unusual.
which is kind of unusual for them to get over list price.
10 over.
To get 10 over.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did. And this one just sold.
Was there any history? Did it have a fallout or 2? I mean,
I didn't look at the history on it to see. I mean, you can look real quick and,
just, you know, wondered if it was on totally that long or if it was off for a little while with an option or something. I see some OCs up there.
yeah, see, it went active here, active option contingent, went back to active. Yeah, it did fall out.
I think those people probably were panicked that it wasn't ever
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Like they had 3 contracts.
And
before they got
that's something you have to look at in the market that we're having now too. Angus, for example, Angus listed over in Frisco, over in Dominion of Panther Creek for $489. They got $495 the first day. Buyer decided, I just don't like the floor plan so much. Keep my option money, I want to go find another house. Put the house back on the market, guess what, it's still sitting on the market. This was 2 or 3 weeks ago now.
You can take the air out of it.
Yeah.
What really makes me mad about these agents that are doing this, and what I've told my people is that it used to be when you had one fallout, unless it was obviously a financial thing, that they were saying, oh, what happened with the inspection? It was there's something wrong with the house. And what I've told them is we've got these agents that I think it's unethical that are going in and putting contracts on 3 different houses.
Yep.
And then when they get in town, they pick the one they want, and then they come out of the other 2.
Or the inspector.
But it's doing the damage to, just like what you said,
Yeah.
it's either, if they had 3 people lined up, those people have moved on and done something else. And
Well,
it can really throw a hitch into
what some
a house that's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
It just
what
was
I suggest to a lot of agents, especially if you're getting multiple offers on a house.
a house.
Well, not only have they seen the house, but I want more option money.
Yeah.
I don't want $250. I want $500.
Yeah.
I want
I want
some,
it to hurt.
I want
Make
it
it
to
hurt
hurt.
if they walk on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so somebody was telling me they got $1,000 option money
Mhm.
on a house in Seville, the Highlands.
Mm.
$1,000 in Seville, the Highlands,
Goodness.
and $3,000 earnest.
They wanted the house.
And they told them, they said, this is what you're gonna have to do. I've had 30 offers or 3 showings in the first couple. I've got 15 offers. If you want it, this is what you're gonna have to do. And I went, okay. So if they walk, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not gonna walk on that.
Oh, it's a good idea.
And one agent who slipped up and told us that they made offers on multiple properties.
Yeah.
And the one they made on ours was
Are you talking about
good. I don't remember
Sally's?
which one recently.
Sally's property?
Yeah, and
Oh, I
I
found out
had to
'cause
convince them.
I found the
had to
buyer
convince-
posting on Facebook that they had made offers on
Yeah,
multiple
that
properties.
was right.
Oh.
I had to convince
This
the
is the
seller
buyer
that
property.
this was not a good one to go with because this is going on. We've discovered this through Facebook and things. And I called the agent on it and said, your client is making.
Yeah.
Why don't they just,
There have been
Well-
both.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, what I'm seeing is a lot of buyers are coming to their agent and going, hey, can we make offers on multiple properties? Yeah, and you can't lie to them and say no. You can say, yeah, it's not really ethical thing.
yeah, I've had one, but we've discouraged them from doing it.
But a lot of times buyers are going, that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
That's what we're having to do to contract the property because I've got 3 properties that I like, but they're gonna go.
In case I lose the other one.
And so what am I gonna do? All right, so let's take a look at buyer's market versus seller's market. This will help you also when comping a house, because it is very important to look at and know what type of market you're in. Now, if you listen to the news, you read the newspaper, anything these days, you talk to anybody, everybody knows it's the seller's market. Everybody knows what's going on in real estate. In a buyer's market, there's typically an abundance of inventory or lack of buyers. In a seller's market, there's low inventory of buyers. Simply supply versus demand. I mean, it's really very simple in this. This is very much economics. Okay. The difference in pricing a home in each market, in a buyer's market, it will only be valued what a buyer will purchase it for. In a seller's market, what a buyer has to purchase it for. Okay. That's not to say that you're going to take, say, the house we just looked at, the suburban house, and it's sold for $255. It's not to say that they're going to have to purchase it for $300,000. It's only going to bear what the market will give for it. But still, a seller will go, look, if you want to buy my house right now, if you're going to make me an offer, you have to purchase it for this, and you have to do this. In a buyer's market, no. Buyer's market go, take $10,000 off. Let's negotiate.
There's still a threshold though.
There is a threshold. There is a, let's say, a breaking point. There is a breaking point to that limit, but still, at that point, the buyer's going to go, no, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to purchase it for that. You want $275 for your $255 house? I'm not going to do it. Now, may there be another buyer who will? Maybe, but that's what the seller's taking a chance on.
So can the listing agent make you put that in special provisions?
What's that?
You know, well, you have to buy it at this price regardless of what it comes back at?
You can put something in there regarding the appraisal. Now, if you talk to a lender, lenders will tell you, please don't, because what appraisers do is that's an automatic red flag. There's a reason why. Now, if you say house, you have 3 offers that come in, one at 265, one at 275, one at 270. You take the 275, of course.
Right.
At that point, you go to the appraiser and go, look, here are the offers that I got in within the first day. So you're telling me my 275 is out of line? No, I don't think so. And so he goes with that. So again, it depends on what the market's doing at the time. So you have to be very, in tune with what's happening. Also, in a low inventory seller's market, the active properties in the neighborhood, the active properties in the neighborhood, or comparables to the subject have to be used. They simply move too fast, and the market today is not, will be a month from now when those are sold. Okay, we go back and look at our one that we had a few minutes ago, where there was one active property. Anybody remember what that active property was listed for?
265, I think.
269. 269. And that's what the market's going to bear now. So what happened on May 15th, when that home sold for 255, is going to change when this other home that was listed at 269 sells for, say, 265. There goes the market again. So again, we've got to change. It happens that quick. Again, that like the house that I had on Pine Tree in El Dorado. I mean, it went from 215, went up almost $30,000 in a few months. So you just have to know what your market is. Okay, extra items that add value. And this is pretty typical. When you start looking at comps, you have to look at extra items. 3-car garage. A 3rd car typically is worth about $10,000 in the market. Pool, $15,000 to $25,000, depending upon the home price point and features. It also depends upon the age of the pool and the condition of the pool. If it's a home with a pool that was put in 1980 with a lot, saw one not too long ago, that pool doesn't have a lot of value.
Probably it's detriment.
It could be a detriment now.
They're
Somebody
gonna
may
spend
say,
a lot
I
of
just
money
have to
fixing
fill that
that.
thing in. So it depends on the pool, depends on the features. There's other things you have to look at. Typical suburban market, though, you're looking at $15,000 to $25,000. Okay. Bedrooms. Again, if you're talking about a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, you're looking at about $2,500 is how I value them. Okay. Bathroom, about $1,500. Half bath, $750 to $1,000, depending upon, again, the size of the house. Granite countertops, I think they add about $5,000 in value to a house. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Hardwood floors typically add about $5,000 in value to a house. Creek lot, about $20,000. Greenbelt lot, about $10,000. And this is what I typically look at. 2 main areas of a home that add value are the kitchen and master bath. So we go back to that granite, we go back to anything that's been upgraded. If somebody's going to upgrade and add value to a property, when you're looking at comps, you're looking at the kitchen and the master bath, because those are the 2 main areas I always tell sellers are what's going to sell your home. Why? Come on, you experienced realtor. Why? Okay.
That's what people spend the most time. That's what costs the most to remodel. It's cheap to throw carpet in over.
And who makes the decisions when buying a home?
Lion.
Yeah. If she doesn't like the kitchen, she doesn't like the master bath. It doesn't matter what the rest of the house looks like. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter what that meeting room looks like that the man loves.
That he thinks he's gonna get and he may not ever get, because that's.
That doesn't matter.
How many houses?
Kitchen and master bath add the most value to a house. And so when you're looking at comparables, you have to look at what those features are and what those properties have in it. If you go back to our home that we looked at that sold at 255, very simple home, didn't have any upgrades. But when you're doing your comps, you kind of have to look at those a little bit. And you also have to look at what the active comps have in them as well. You have to look at what you're competing against, because that's your competition now. Because buyers are going to go, one of these 2 homes, and they're much more willing to pay $270 for an upgraded home with granite, hardwoods, and everything else, besides a home that doesn't have it. It's standard Formica, black appliances, there's just little things there that they'll pay more money for because really it's not much more out of their pocket. And that's what they're looking at as well. If I go to put this money into the home now, I'm gonna have to spend $5,000 on granite. I'm gonna have to spend another $3,000 on appliances. And so they're looking at cash out of their pocket. That hurts them much more.
And some people just really don't want to mess with doing it.
And they don't want to mess with doing all that.
Takes a long time.
Yeah.
Kitchen level versus.
So
I
again,
got that upgraded from Mike, and then I think the kit from Lowe's, it's painted, it
Right.
looks like granite.
yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
A whole 2 weekends doing that.
All right, rural properties. How many here like doing rural property comps? They are the hardest thing that you will do. They are absolutely the hardest thing. The reason why, rural and country properties can be very difficult to value due to lack of conformity and extra variables such as fencing, flood zone, barns. But there are some of the same general rules that apply. Okay? Stay within the city limits or within 10 miles. Closer, the better. If you have a house that's 5 miles outside of town, you can expand out a little bit, go to the nearest town, go to the next nearest town, stay within 10 miles if possible, but closer, the better. And that's kind of what you have to kind of think of as an appraiser on this.
So maybe it's one of your next bullets, but there's my next problem is, say, I'll find one that's 4 miles away,
Yeah.
but the one I'm working is built 1995, 4 acres.
Yep.
And the closest one is built 1968, 10 acres. And then I'll find one that's
If the one built
15
in,
miles away, built 1995,
Yeah.
5 years difference, but it's 15 miles away in a different town. And I'm going, okay.
I will tell you that when you start looking at the rural properties, the age of the home doesn't affect it as much if it's been upgraded. And if it's the same, if an appraiser can look at the two and go, well, due to the upgrades under this 1968 house, with its now it's how it's granted, it's got new floors and it can be used as a comparable. He'll still use it.
You only have these
Exactly.
3 or 4.
He'll make adjustments to make it work. So you can use that. You can go 15 miles out if you've got one exactly the same, and we'll talk about land and everything else. If it's very close, you can use that one too. But again, closer the better. Okay.
Because there's what we run into. If somebody who's looking and I'm trying to find something to help them decide if this is worth
Mhm.
what the people are asking, whatnot. And we're looking and there's like nothing
Yeah.
close that's comparable. And now we're in Anna looking at it.
Yeah.
What we're finding is in Salina to find something close that's the same.
But see,
height.
yeah, and that's exactly right.
Anna, Salina,
As long as the-
75,
as-
Preston.
Yeah, but see, as long as the towns are very similar, then you can use that. If the towns are very similar now, if you're going, well, this one's 5 miles outside of Anna and this one's 2 miles outside of McKinney. Yeah, a little bit of difference because it's a little closer to McKinney, and we'll talk about, again, property values and the size and the acreage and everything, but there starts to be really big variables there that start to be hard to, if you can find other things, you can definitely recommend other ones. Again, properties with homes, 1 story to 1 story, 2 story to 2 story. That is not a variable. That's the only thing you can ever use. I've gone into a lot of people's homes, especially, and they'll go, well, this home sold for X amount. And I'm going, well, it wasn't on my comps, and tell me about it. Well, it was a 1 story. Oh, you got a 2 story. That's the reason why. And so another thing to remember about homes, it costs more to build a 1 story home than a 2 story home. A lot of people don't realize that, but 1 story homes have a bigger footprint on the lot. That means they take up more concrete, they have more roof, they actually have a little bit more building material than a 2 story home. So it costs a little bit more to build a 1 story versus a 2 story. Price per square foot will be higher typically. Okay. So you can 1 story, 1 story, 2 story, 2 story. Same age rules apply as suburban. Closer to the subject areas, the better. For acreage properties, the closer to a large town, the more valuable the price per acre. There's let's say the Petros list a house 2 miles outside of McKinney on 19 acres that has a 6,000 square foot house on it. It's gonna be valued at 1.6.
1.6, yeah.
1.6 million. You take that house, you go up to Van Alstyne, and you put that house up in Van Alstyne, that house is only worth 900,000 up there. The price per acre drops because there's more closer amenities, there's closer shopping, closer roads, easier access to get around. So the price per acre, plus it's just scarcity. Land is scarcer closer to town than it is further out. So the price per acre will be higher the closer you get to a large town. If the subject land does not have a home on it, then use only comparables without a home. Same applies if it does have a home. You can't take land and go, somebody goes, I want to sell my 50 acres that have my cattle on it. And you go, does it have a house or anything on it? No. Well, okay, let's find something close without a house on it, because again, you're adding value with a house. You can't just take off a house. So you try to use comparables land only. Again, the larger the parcel, the less the price per acre. You can't comp 100 acres to 10 acres. 10 acres, let's say 10 acres around McKinney, you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000 an acre. You go up to Van Alstyne, it's going to drop again. But you go to 100 acres around here, and it's going to drop down to probably $8,000 an acre. So the price drops the bigger the land. Same thing with a house. Think of it as a house. Typically, larger the house, the less the price per square foot. Same thing with land. Price per square foot is going to drop. Price per acre is going to drop. And stay within the same type of land as possible. Farmland to farmland, ranch land to ranch land. And please tell me you know the difference between both. Okay. Farmland, crops. Ranch land, cattle, horses, sheep, goats, etc. And try to use the same as much as possible. For properties less than 10 acres, use comparables 5 to 20 acres. 20 to 50, use 10 to 75 acres, but use a sliding scale to keep as close as possible. Examples, if you have 35 acres, try to keep within 20 to 50 acres. Use comps. Okay, because again, if you start going beyond that, the price per acre is going to drop.
The other thing that an appraiser told me too is that the usability of the land is important
Yes.
too. So if you may have a 20-acre parcel, but only 10 of it's accessible.
We'll talk about that too. Yeah, if only 10 of it, say it's in part of it's in a floodplain, or half of it's covered up by trees, or it has a creek running through it, that you can't, there's no value to it. And we'll talk about floodplains in a minute.
Is that a subject that's coming out?
Yes, it is. Items that can add or subtract value on a rural property. Lakes, ponds, and creeks. It doesn't have a lake, doesn't have a water source for animals, especially on ranch land. You don't have a lot of value because you gotta have that. Okay. Creeks typically will add some value, depends on where it is and where it runs through it, and if it causes a problem with the land. Fencing, pipe fencing is more valuable than barbed wire. Costs more to put up, it's more durable, it's less invasive on the animals. Okay. A lot of ranchers do not like putting up barbed wire anymore. I put up barbed wire since I was a kid. I hate barbed wire. It tears you up, tears up animals. I've seen it rip up horses badly. And so barbed wire, but it has pipe fencing all around it. It's very nice. It's more durable. It's less invasive on the animals. It adds much more value. Also, being completely fenced or cross-fenced can add value. I've seen a lot of land that it's only halfway fenced. Well, you know what? Guess what? Somebody who's going to buy it is going to end up having to fence the rest of that.
What's cross fence?
Means that if you have a piece of land, so you have a square piece of land and it's fenced across it somewhere to divide it, so you can keep the animals on part of it at one time, so they're not completely tearing up all one part of the land, they go back the other. It's cross fencing. Barns. Now barns are, again, it's kind of like a swimming pool. You have to look at the type, look at the age, look at condition. Is it floored? Does it have utilities? Does it have the water and electricity running to it? Stalls, what type of stalls, what condition? Again, you have to look at them. There's some things to look at on these. May have little or no value. I listed a house out on Mill Run, out on the east side of town, going out by the airport a couple of years ago. And older couple over there telling me, yeah, we've got 21 acres here. I said, how much of it is usable? Well, all of it's usable. I said, well, how much is in a floodplain? 11. Okay. You really have about 10 acres. Okay. Even though it doesn't flood all the time. And I said, does it still flood? He goes, yeah, it still floods, but the animals still have plenty of land. Well, you can't do anything with that floodplain, so it has very little value now. So floodplains take away a lot of value. And it depends. Does it normally flood? Is it a 50-year floodplain? Yeah, 100-year or 50-year floodplain. There is a difference. Yes.
We had a property that a buyer was buying, and they were using an out-of-state lender who flagged the property as being in a floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
And we had looked at it before going and contracting on it. So we knew that there was maybe a tiny corner of it, but because of that tiny corner, it was flagged as floodplain. They weren't going to issue the
They were
loan
gonna
on it.
land on it.
Yeah.
And so we had to help them realize that it was a tiny corner and it wasn't anywhere near the house. And so
So out of like
sometimes
7 acres.
Yeah.
Like
half an acre.
half of an acre.
Mhm.
Was in a floodplain.
Sometimes you have to help the
At the
lenders
opposite corner of
realize
where
that
the house
floodplain
was.
isn't the same thing if it's not.
And if you ever need the map, you can Google like
FEMA's map.
FEMA's map, 100-year floodplain.
You should find it on mattress now. There's
Can
an
you?
overlay.
Oh, that's right.
There's a drop down overlay. You can click on floodplain and it pulls it up over the
Over
property.
the property.
That's cool.
Yeah, a lot easier to, like, we
Yeah.
used to have to go to FEMA's and try and
Yeah.
online things to see.
Lastly, trees. Some trees are usually good, but animals need land, eat grass. So too many trees can be a bad issue. Okay. If you've got a large abundance of trees, grass needs sunlight to grow, people. Okay. And if you've got animals, unless they're goats, then that are eating on the trees, it's really, the land doesn't have a lot of value. So some trees are good. Yeah. Also, the type of trees can be a variable. Oaks, pecans, hardwoods, good. Cedars, evergreens, bad. Cedars and evergreens, I will tell you, ranchers hate cedars. They hate cedars. They grow fast. They are animals won't touch them hardly. They're very much a useless tree. And once you pull them up, you have to basically go in with diesel and burn them out to keep them out. If not, they just keep coming back. They take over the land. Okay. Pecans and hardwoods are good. Give some shade. They don't grow that fast, and they're very much more useful. So when doing a market analysis on a rural property, I highly suggest getting a second opinion from another experienced realtor. Okay. Unless you're comfortable doing it or have done 10 of them, get with somebody else, just get a second eye on it, because they are very, very difficult to do. A lot of times somebody will ask me, what do you think about this property? Tell me, and the first thing I ask them is, tell me about the land. What type of land is it? Is it rolling? Is it in a floodplain? Is it fenced? What type of fencing? There's lots of questions that go in. And so when you're working with a seller on a rural property, ask them some questions, get as much detail as you can, because the comps that you're going to be using, again, you're going to have a lot of variables going in there. Because say, for example, you get one that is barbed wire, you see this one's cross fenced, you go, well, the cross fencing over here, typically, it depends on the size of the land, is going to add an extreme amount of value based on what you're doing here. So, buying on it. So, any questions?
Okay. I don't think we said much about townhomes, but off of Stacy Road in 75, there's a builder back there that did some townhomes. And across the creek, they also built some single-family dwellings, but they were real narrow, kind of tall houses. Because it's a single family, and it's actually in the same phase, but it's just on the other side of the same building. Single family homes
No,
in comparison to the townhome?
no.
Okay.
Unless the taxing records show them to be a condo or a townhome, you can't use them. You have to find other condos and townhomes. And with condos and townhomes, you can, since they're not relatively usually close together unless you're finding them within the same community, if you can't find them within that same little community, you have to find a similar community of similar quality. And so that's kind of how you look at those.
Meaning how much older is the town north of Van Austin, I guess?
Van Austin.
South of Sherman. There's a land near the school, and how much land near the school's flat or tree, how much it goes by? It's 60, 70 acre land.
I don't know. I have to look at it. I don't know what that land's going for right now. I have to look at the comps on it and see what they've got. And really, when you start looking at more commercial stuff, which that probably is, you kind of look at more what the commercial industry is doing up there. If there's anything planned to be built up there.
Just school, high schools goes by, that's all.
Yeah, that's something you have to get in and look at the comps on land properties up there. There's a guy that lives up there that does a lot of commercial land. That's all he does. And that's who I would use as a reference on something like that, because he'll tell you, hey, I just sold this one, which is similar, and he knows that stuff backwards and forwards. So I would definitely get an opinion on that. Anything else? All right.
How?
I don't know how you say that, how.
Yeah.
It's
There's a
like
new apartment complex building in town right now too. Oh, how's that building? After all these years we've driven through there and nothing's been